Okay, I think we can get started. We only have a few minutes, so I'd like to dive right in. But hello, everyone. My name is Jordan, and I'm the Education and Communications Coordinator here at the Gowanus Canal Conservancy. And now, while the jury is off deliberating, we're just going to take this time to discuss the importance of activism and how design and activism can sort of intersect with one another. So this discussion will mainly be geared towards the students here today, but I do encourage all participants to listen in. But of course, if anybody would like to take this time to grab a snack, take a break, this is a good time to do that. We'll probably be here for the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. And then once this sort of shifts over, we will venture on to the final portion of this event. So just to jump right in, we have two experts from the field who you've already heard from a little bit, Jessica and Brandon, and they are going to speak to you about their experiences and answer some questions if time allows. But to kick things off, we're just going to start with some basic introductions. So mainly who we are, what we do, and why we do it. So I will just start right now, and then I will pass the metaphorical mic over to Jessica and then to Brandon. So again, my name is Jordan, and I'm the Education and Communications Coordinator. I've been here for about 2 years, and I lead our in-person education programs, which of course they're virtual for this season, but generally I'm out in the field with students, and we're doing water quality testing, talking about green infrastructure, taking tours around the neighborhood, stuff like that. And I'm also working with teachers with workshops and professional development events. And then of course we have the communication side, so I help with social media, newsletters, video editing, events, things of that nature. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do, but now I'm going to talk about the why. So I do this work because it's something that I'm really passionate about. I've always had this really strong connection to nature and the environment, especially from just starting off as a kid. And then of course, growing up, you start to learn about what it is that the planet is really facing, right? And of course, when you love something, you want to protect it. So that's really how I found myself in this position. But now I'm in this place where I can educate and inform and inspire people, and particularly youth, and help them to make a difference in this planet. So it's honestly the coolest job I can possibly imagine. I wouldn't want to do anything else. And just a quick note, I just want to say I'm very grateful to be here with all of you today. You guys are already doing the work. These projects and presentations have been amazing, and it just brings so much joy and meaning to my life, just to see all of you young people making this a better place. And of course, creating a future that's sustainable and enjoyable for everyone. So really thank you for that. I don't want to ramble too much, that's just me, so we're going to pass things over now. So Jessica, if you could just briefly introduce yourself, again, who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Jess. I am completing a master's in landscape architecture right now. I'm from New Rochelle, New York, so a little bit above the city. And yeah, I love public spaces, public green spaces. I got into the whole world of it from a class I took in high school, actually, environmental studies. And I heard one of your schools had an ecology class, which is amazing already to be learning about that so early. So I always knew I wanted to pursue science just because it was most interesting to me. And then once I was looking at colleges, and you see this huge laundry list of majors, and environmental studies seemed like kind of the most important to me, or the most interesting and sort of relevant to my interests. I already liked going outside, learning about plants and animals all the time. And then it was sort of exploring different cities, just another thing related to like my interests, having fun, and exploring different cities around the world and country, and realizing that the green spaces there were my favorite things I always sought them out. It always seemed like the special thing about where you were living were its very particular parks. And I realized I could design them, which was something that hadn't occurred to me before. So I started Google searching, emailing people. I'm a huge advocate of the cold email. If there's any like field that you guys are interested in. Just, you know, look up professionals, find people that are already working in that, and tell them that you're interested. And yeah, I figured out landscape architecture was probably the closest to what I wanted to do. And I ended up working at Gowanus Canal Conservancy, not to promo our host too hard, but an awesome organization actually right in my neighborhood. And I walked past Natasha doing a volunteer event one day and interacting with all these volunteers. And it was sort of already what I was thinking about. And then like literally in my backyard. So yeah, that's why I do what I do. I love it.
Thank you, Jess. That's great. And thank you for being here. Brandon.
All right. So like Jess, I am a fellow. She is my classmate. We're both students at City College. We're second year MLA students, so landscape architecture. I chose landscape architecture because I learned about this major maybe back in my undergrad. I went to Stony Brook, and I entered Stony Brook as a civil engineer, but I failed physics my first semester, and that made me realize I may not do too well in the math and science-y. So I looked at other majors, and I found, oh, there's environmental design, planning, and policy. And I took many classes where I got to like do a site analysis. I got to do we got to redesign a plaza on our campus, and I felt like, oh, maybe this is what I want to do. And when I graduated, and it made me think about the city I live in. I grew up in New York City. I live in Queens right now, and I'm surrounded by whole New York City. I'm very interested in its history and the thing about spaces and how we could make spaces better. So I took a gap year after graduating, and I knew I wanted to be an urban designer, planner, but I felt like my skills were not enough. So that's why I began perusing some grad school, seeing so I can improve my design skills and digital skills like AutoCAD, Adobe, and Rhino. And then I was fortunate to find City College is right in New York City. I just commute there. It's easy to get to, and I have definitely learned a lot, and I'm really impressed with what you guys have done so far in middle school using Tinkercad and making 3D modeling. So I only learned 3D modeling through Rhino and AutoCAD about a year and a half ago. And what you guys are doing starting young is really impressive. I say to keep going on, keep working on those skills. I'm really impressed, and it's a good foundation. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you both for sharing a little bit about yourselves. Now, obviously, since we don't have too much time, I do want to just jump in with some questions that I think will be great to hear the answers of. Some of these questions are going to be addressed to our experts and some to our students and some to both. So my first question is for both our experts, Brandon and Jess, and our students. So anyone who wants to answer, please do. This is a small enough group where I think we can kind of just shout out, have a bit of a dialogue here, but if it gets crazy, maybe we start raising our hands, I don't know. And if you feel a little bit too uncomfortable to share and you want to just let us know in the chat box, that's okay too. But I do want to encourage some vocal dialogue. Okay, first question. How can design be considered a form of activism used to make a positive impact, either on a small local scale or on a large national scale?
Well, I personally think that design can be used for activism. In many cases, for example, art. A lot of people use, for example, let's say graffiti or something. You can incorporate, let's say, pieces of art into a design, and they can have a special meaning. Another example of something like that is sculptures. So certain things have certain meanings. For example, there are many symbols in our media that have different values and all of that. And I feel like if you incorporate certain things into your design, they can either speak for something, and you can really can really express your ideas through these things, particularly in this art form. And yeah, that's just one example.
That's great, Zaria. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in? Maybe one more person?
Open to teachers too, or just students?
Let's throw in the teachers too.
I mean, one of the things that we try and do with our unit is to really look at like who gets green space and who gets to live next to the sewage treatment plants, and why are those decisions made, right? So when we look at rates of asthma, for example, you know, it's no surprise that people who have less money are living around places that are toxic and breathing terrible air, and they're the ones getting asthma. And the people who have a lot of money, when they suggest putting toxic things in their neighborhood, they develop coalitions and keep it out. It does fall along racial lines, and it is a racial issue. It's just another way. Environmental justice is another way that we oppress people and punish people for being poor or being Black and brown. And it's really a social justice issue of race, in my opinion. And I think we need to say that and own it and fight for it as people who care about the environment and care about justice.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you, Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on this before we move on to the next question?
Well, just going off of what Cheryl was saying, there's definitely a lot of advocacy in where we decide that these things go. And, you know, there's the whole field of environmental justice that are trying to like find ways to fix these issues, and not like some of the things, it's unfortunately too late. This huge community is in an area like my last studio project for school this year was in L spaces, the spaces underneath highways and subways that often cut through long disserved neighborhoods and communities. And so now with like something like the BQE that we can't necessarily just remove all in one day, we can, as designers, at least try to think of best possible ways to make those spaces more livable, or even like destinations if we possibly can, making the best out of a sometimes bad situation when that's the case.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to ask 2 more questions, and I'm going to keep it open to everybody. So the next question is, what have you done to create change in your community using design, or how do you hope to create change in your community using design, depending on the experience that you have?
I'd love to hear from some students, but I mean, I got super lucky and GCC was hiring when I strolled across them, but if I didn't work there, I would have still volunteered there super regularly. You know, I moved to a new neighborhood, and one of the first things I did was my little Google search, find out what organizations were in the neighborhood, and figured out how I could get involved and just like meet more people who are my neighbors and figure out kind of what their lives were about and what their issues were.
That's great. Yeah, community is everything. It all starts with getting to know one another.
Yeah.
Can I get maybe one student to chime in? How do you hope to create change in your community? Have you started to think about that at all?
Well, I have done a little bit of volunteer work, but in other areas. But for other things, like I often do volunteer work with my mom. But I do hope to try to do more volunteer work related to design and like environmental issues, like let's say cleaning up garbage with the school, around schools, or cleaning up garbages in parks. I remember, I think it was last year or the year before, But I remember our expo class, we went around the school or another block and we were using the trash pickers to clean up the garbage on the sidewalk. And it was a very interesting experience, but it also made me feel really good inside because it's like we're helping the community. And I really want to try to do more of that in the future and see what I can do.
That's amazing. I'm happy to hear that, and thank you for sharing your experience. Okay, last question, open to everybody. It's a big one. What gives you hope that we can make a difference, and what drives you forward in this mission to make the world a better place? Maybe some voices we haven't heard yet.
I want to hear from the students because I was going to say them. They're doing design work that I just learned way more like later in life.
Right.
Yeah, you guys' work is so amazing.
Yeah, let's hear from some students. And again, if you're feeling a little uncomfortable, you can let me know in the chat box how you're feeling. Maybe the students can keep thinking. Brandon, do you have anything that you'd like to chime in with?
Yeah, can you repeat the question again?
Sure. What gives you hope that we can make a difference? What drives you forward in this mission to make the world a better place?
What drives me? Well, first off is seeing like the young students doing this. You guys in middle school starting young, getting into technology, building up those skills where you could advance them through your high school and college years. As Jess said, I'm with her that I just learned these skills a year and a half ago. I learned them earlier. Who knows what I could have done. So participating in this challenge and hearing all this feedback, learning new skills gives you a good foundation. And I think it's really the students, the younger students, doing a change. I mean, I'm still learning, and in my program, we are dealing with environmental justice. We're dealing with social issues. We're trying to design spaces for people that integrate the community, and it just, I guess it starts with the young, yeah. Such when you're a young age. So I'm really impressed with these projects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way.
Yeah, I'm even impressed how much you guys know and how much you guys care. Like it wasn't cool to care about the environment when I was in middle school, and I'm not that old. Like that wasn't that long ago. So just like saying how much you care about, and like some of you guys surveyed your other students to get feedback about like their input, and just sort of this community mindset that you already have is so impressive.
Absolutely. You guys give me hope, that's for sure. So it looks like our group is coming back. Is this true? Seeing more people coming in.
We're all coming back. We're ready to
Great.
go forward.
Okay, good. Well, we finished our questions. So I guess we can transition back. Thank you guys. If you have additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and we can continue the conversation at another time. Thank you.